People of Earth, gig ho!
Gig ho! We play Gig Hoes!
Hi, I'm Marla.
And I'm Willa. And we are the Gig Hoes. Welcome to Gig Hoes.
The good, the bad, and the funny.
The inside stories of being a freelance club date musician.
In the 80s and the 90s.
That's right. How you doing this week, Marla?
I'm all gigged out. I'm peopled out. I'm gigged out.
Yeah, you had a lot of gigs this week.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, today we're going to go into some topics we thought might be funny. And the first one is incorrect lyrics or purposefully incorrect lyrics.
Or lazily.
What comes to mind for you, Marla?
Well, no disrespect, but it is funny. I mean, I used to sing with a club date band in the 80s and 90s. And that was a time when the Bruce Springsteen song, Dancing in the Dark,
right.
I think it was. So I don't know if any of you guys still remember how the lyrics go, but it was specifically the bridge of the song. I remember the guitar player.
Getting older.
Is sitting around getting older. And the next line should be, there's a joke here somewhere and it's on me.
Right.
And the guy, I don't know, I mean, he could have looked it up. There was no internet then, but he could have listened, and it didn't even sound. So anyway, it was like, sitting around getting older, sip a cup of wine. I mean, it's not even close to what the lyric is.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So I can laugh about it to this day.
Well, even now, I work with a band leader that does this, but there was one guy in particular that was very famous for telling the band what song it was, not by the name of the song, but by whatever the first lines were.
Oh, people do that all the time.
I know, yeah. So he would turn around and go, "Why do birds?" You know, okay, why do birds? You know. And then Cy Cogan's band, we did a lot of joke lyrics on purpose. The guys in particular, like "I'm in the nude for love."
I'm in the nude.
And it went on, "Heaven is in your thighs."
Oh, yes.
And then the bridge was, "Why stop to think of broccoli?" So I don't even want to go.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I hope not.
And then there were a lot on Celebration. It was easy, but...
Salivate.
Yeah, right. But my favorite, I came up with the parody of that, which was menstruation time tampon. That was...
Well, I remember a certain owner of a club date office. I mean, I think they used to think, let's see what we could get away with and see if anybody will notice.
Totally.
I mean, and then the other song that was big then was Wang Chung.
Oh.
And I'm gonna say it because I didn't come up with it, but this is what it was.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I mean, it was like everybody have fun tonight, and the so-called owner of the company used to sing, "Everybody eat tonight."
Oh, God. Oh, man. Did anybody ever catch it?
I don't think so, because he's still in business.
Wow.
You know?
Wow. Yeah.
It's unbelievable, yes.
Yeah, I mean, somebody reminded me the other day. It was the lady bass player that worked with us in Florida.
Yes.
She reminded me the other day that we did a gig together in the 90s. And it was right when You Ought to Know had come out. And, you know, it's, are you thinking of me when you fuck her, right?
Right.
And it was a bat mitzvah. And she said, I didn't remember this. I was leading the job. She said, all the little girls were lined up in front of the stage waiting with salivating, waiting to see if I would say the word, you know. And I asked her, I said, did I say the word? She goes, oh, yeah. And the little girls went crazy, you know.
It's amazing, the power of language.
Yeah.
What was the other one? Well, I do a piano bar restaurant, and I decided to do Captain Jack. Somebody asked if, Captain Jack.
There's a masturbate in there, isn't
there?
there?
But I said, and then you go and sit at home and celebrate. I said, I still want to work here next week, so maybe I should You know?
That's interesting.
And then as a DJ, I mean, I'm forever like looking for the clean versions
I
of
know.
things, you know.
I
But
know.
that's not the 80s and the 90s. But that's what we have to contend with now. There was
know.
no X-rated lyrics then, so.
Oh, I know. This is good. So it's Jumpin' Jack Flash, right? I think it's actually I was born in a crossfire hurricane, right?
Right.
But this drummer, because like in those days, you couldn't really find the lyrics. You know, you'd just have to listen to the record and.
Or by Song Hits magazine.
Oh,
Right.
but did they always get it right?
Pretty much. I mean, because like they had the publisher in there and everything.
Right.
It was pretty legitimate.
Dang, I wish I'd known about that because I used to like play the record over and over.
Right. And you couldn't slow it down, really, right?
No,
I mean,
no. I mean, sometimes.
now you can
Let's
do
see.
anything.
What was it in the 80s? By then it was cassettes, right? Yeah. I'd run out to the record store and pay $3.50 to buy a cassette of one song,
For that one job, yep.
and then I'd play it over and over and over. So he believed that his version of "I was born in a crossfire hurricane" was "I was born in a cross pie hote." That was
Ote.
cross pie hote.
We're like, what is that?
Well, you know, I mean, sometimes it would just come to that. Like you just kind of phonetically.
You have to just say it, yeah.
Yeah, phonetically sound it out.
You had no choice, yeah.
Yeah. That was good. Cross pie hote. And then, you know, so what would happen whenever we were playing with that drummer, my brother would call the song that way. He wouldn't say Jumpin'
Cross
Jack Flash.
pie hote.
He'd go, cross pie hote. And we'd all go, yeah.
Well, I have an embarrassing lyric story, but it's a
good.
different kind of story.
Okay.
One time, Marvin Hamlish is in the audience, you know. Just like, and I hadn't ever like really done through the years like regularly, but all of a sudden you have to do through the years. Marvin Hamlish is here, and it's like no cell phone to look up the actual lyrics. So I'm sure I screwed up the lyrics in front of the author. You know, that's probably what killed him. Sorry,
I
Marvin.
once I got some notice though, but I was told that Alan Menken was a guest at the party. So the band leader called me up and said, "You got to sing a song by Alan Menken." But I chose Somewhere That's Green, which is from Little Shop of Horrors, which
Great
is a really
song.
and short.
Yeah.
So he gave me the nod, you know. I sang.
Oh,
like,
good.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. As opposed to the other day when I had to sing this Irish hymn for Cardinal Dolan, and he was all the way on the dais on the other side, and I learned this song, "Lady of Knock," it's called. I guess she was a saint. So I couldn't even tell if he'd heard it. But then later he came by the bandstand and he said to me, "That was great. Can you sing that song at my funeral?" And I said, "Sure." You know, and I was
Should I kill you now?
right. I was going to say, let's hope that doesn't happen for a long time.
I know. That
But
seems
he
like
left.
the right thing to
yeah,
say.
but he walked away before I got to say that. So
He's such a joke. He's such a cardinal.
well, he is. Oh God.
Sorry.
He actually he told a whole bunch of jokes.
I guess you have time to like fool around when you're the cardinal.
I think he must. I'm assuming he says that to every single person that sings. or
Probably.
play, yeah.
Probably. He's got his stock lines.
That's the thing. Which brings me around to the next. So I know a lot of times I've been referencing this guy Cy. He was a club date leader that we worked for a long time. He had these cards printed up that it was his card, but then it was perforated. It was like folded, and the other thing was requests. So he put these on the tables, and then so that way it would leave people with his card, and then they'd fill out these requests, and they'd send them all up to the band. And we got some doozies. And so for our audience that may not know, there's a jazz standard called "Cry Me a River." Right? Cry me a river, cry me a river. So somebody wrote, "Can you play Crimean River?" You know, like the Crimea that
Yes.
in Ukraine. That was good. Somebody wrote Oogie Googie Googie.
Boogie Oogie.
That would be
Oogie.
Boogie Oogie, right? Yeah. So that was a great.
I know. It's when you get requests, it's like you're deciphering what are they talking about.
Oh yeah.
I make them sing me a line sometimes, you know, because
One
they
was
don't
for
know.
Hey Love.
Hey love.
Yeah.
Hey Jude.
No, Layla.
Oh.
Hey Love. Okay. Anyway, so our next topic: hecklers, stalkers, lechers, schnorrers,
And
nebbishes. Okay, we should explain. The first three are self-explanatory, but perhaps we should explain schnorrer.
Well, you go ahead.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. A schnorrer is somebody that's always looking to not have to pay their fair share. They're always, that's the guy that wants a ride without ever asking if he wants to contribute gas money, if he can kick in a few bucks for the tolls and gas.
Well, you're going anyway.
Exactly. But let's start with the hecklers. Do you have a heckler story?
I'm trying to remember. Well, there was one story. He wasn't exactly a heckler, but it's kind of funny. It makes me think of that. I had a gig in my early part of my career with my lounge band, and we worked at a restaurant called the Stratton, which everybody has heard of. Have you ever played there?
No, I never played there, but I heard.
Lucky you. I mean, it was like the most insane schedule. It was for a month, 6 nights a week, 7 sets a night.
What?
Yeah, I'm not kidding. From like 9 to 3:30, half-hour sets.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, this guy, Mike Vogel, I think, owned it at the time.
Was it in Brooklyn?
No, it was right on Queens Boulevard, not far from, your neighborhood. And
Wow.
and I remember being there, and I was, dating somebody in the band. That's like irrelevant, but like one of his friends was in the audience, and it was a real like meat market kind of place. So, it was like older people trying to pick up older people, and they had like, I don't know, it looked like there were horses in stalls, like they would like it was a very strange place.
Like, you mean like
there was like
Madame Tussauds?
It was like they were leaning against like this like railing, but then they would see their faces through, so it almost looked like they were horses in stalls.
Oh, I get it.
And then my friend Steve was like standing next to somebody, and like he was watching me sing. I was playing piano and sing, and I was in my 20s and looking good, And this guy like turns to him and says, "See the girl singing into the microphone. She thinks it's a dick."
Oh my God!
So yeah, and like he told me this story because I would never know, but like to like think of like what are people thinking? They see a girl on stage and they're just like free associating whatever they want you to be thinking about.
Well, I guess at least one guy was thinking, you think the mic's a dick.
You think the mic's a dick.
Wow,
yeah, right.
Good.
Yeah, sure.
I think this comes under the cross-reference of heckler and stalker. So Larry and I used to play at a club in the village. Was it the Back Fence? Just the two of us. And I was also in my 20s, fresh out of college, looking good. But
Fresh.
Yeah, fresh. So this note comes up to the bandstand, and it says, would you like to get together when you're done playing? Nothing big, nothing heavy.
Big.
Nothing big, nothing heavy.
Well, then forget it.
Wait. It's beautiful in its simplicity. Nothing big, nothing heavy, nothing weird. And I'm thinking, and I look out into the audience at this guy standing there with like glassy eyes, like staring at me. And I'm thinking, okay, big, heavy, and weird, like I was glad I was with my brother because I just could see this guy waiting for me outside when the gig was over.
Can you imagine that people think that that's going to work?
Right? Well, he was assuring me nothing big, nothing heavy, nothing weird, just to put me at ease.
But that's what I'm looking for: big, heavy, and weird. So I'm sorry, I can't help you.
Oh God! I mean, I wonder. I have this feeling that people have this feeling that like, when you're playing a wedding and you're in the band, you're going to hook up with like the hottest person at the wedding, and that naturally that's going to happen, right? Do you think people have that preconception?
Most of the time I didn't get like propositioned by guests because guests are always hooked up with like dates.
Usually,
so I didn't find that. It was more the people in the band, the people I worked for, the club owners,
right?
I can have a lot of stories about that kind of stuff. The country club managers. But the interesting thing was, once I turned them down, most of them, except for one, still gave me work, and one guy didn't.
Really?
I actually gave him a box of chocolates, but that wasn't what he was looking for.
He's looking for a different kind of box entirely.
So, I didn't have chocolate in there to give him.
Okay.
No cherries, no chocolate.
Yeah.
Oh, this is getting like very pornographic.
I know. Well, we are talking about stalkers.
I guess this is the time to be that way.
Yeah. But this one club we played at, the Triple Inn, it was great because the main bartender was like built like a bull, and he literally could pick. I saw him do it once. He picked 2 guys up by the scruff of their neck and dragged them outside and threw them out.
Like you see in the movies.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so The Triple M, by the way, was the greatest bar in the world. It was on 54th between 8th and Broadway. And
Where you met your hubby.
it is where I met my husband. And we played there at the last Wednesday of every month for 7 years. And it was just the greatest. But anyway, I never worried. And like stuff happened there because we played there from 9 till 3 in the morning. But because we wanted to, because it was just so much fun.
Right.
You know, I remember one guy. He just started stripping and just standing in front of the band. He just started stripping, you know. And a guy. Yeah, not a particularly good-looking guy either. He was kind of scrawny, actually, but he was a regular.
So they let him do it.
No, he got thrown out. Louis grabbed him up by the scruff of the neck and
He was
tossed
the
him out.
scruffed neck guy.
Well,
Okay.
that was
One of them.
Yeah. He would do it to strangers or people he knew, anybody. So it was a great feeling, you know. It was actually, it was very freeing because I knew.
You were protected.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sometimes
Queen
had
for a day.
I sometimes had to fend for myself.
Well, yeah.
In the beginning, I remember we had like some kind of really low-class agent was sending us with my lounge band to bars, like in Irvington. There's one particular story in Irvington, New Jersey. Mm-hmm. It's like I had never, you know, this is when I started to go to different neighborhoods, and it was like, you know, a real working-class neighborhood, and I didn't have experience with hanging out in bars. I lived a pretty straight life up to then, and still.
Right.
And anyway, so...
Sure you did. No. I'm just kidding.
And he's like, you know, drinking at the bar all night. You know, you go to these like horrible bars where people are just getting like plowed and like you're just incidental.
Yes.
So then he's, I need a ride home. So I said, okay, you know, I'm a nice person.
Who needed the ride home?
This guy that was drinking, he was sort of cute.
Just a guy?
Yeah, like
Oh,
a
no.
single guy. He looked like harmless.
Oh, God.
And then so like when I get him in the car, and I live in Queens, and he's driving, I don't know where I'm going. Then he goes,
no.
I said, well, where do you live? You know, like, you know, and then I don't know, like I was trying to like find out where he lived so I could drop him off. It was stupid to let him in the car. And then he lifts his fist, and there's like a cut on his fist, and he goes, you see this? This is what happened to the last girl.
Oh, my God.
And then so I said, okay. So I just have to play along. I said, oh, let's get something to eat, you know. So we went to a restaurant, and then I took off after that.
Oh, so you left him in the restaurant?
Yeah.
Did you say you were going to ladies' room or
I
something?
don't remember like exactly, but I know once I was in the restaurant, I was able to escape, but I had to get him out of my car. And it's like, shit, you know, like.
Wow. So
I
that
mean,
was the last time you gave a stranger a ride in your
Well,
car?
it's just like the element of being in a bar, because that's before I did club dates. I was like, you know, doing little lounge things in little neighborhood places. And, you know, one time I met a guy I was talking about my father, and my father was out of work at the time. He says, oh, I'll get your father a job. And,
Oh, Lordy.
and then he asked me to borrow $300, and I
God.
gave it to him. And then my father had to get the money back. I mean, like, I didn't have experience with, like,
Yeah.
working in bars. I mean, I used to even drink a little then, and then I stopped doing that because
Right.
you can't, like, be drinking all night and then have to move your, like, 50-pound amp at the end of the night, you know. So,
Unless you do other things to balance it out.
well, I didn't go there.
Yeah.
You can talk about that if
I
you
went
want
there.
to.
Yeah. I know. You know, when you're young and you start, you just don't have any clue.
You're naive.
Yeah.
So naive. And the whole bar thing. And then you see, oh, the same people are here all the time. You know, what does that mean? You know?
It means, well,
So
you
if
know,
they
it
met
depends.
somebody, like, well, they'd still be here even if they met somebody. You know,
Yeah.
like, they're just,
well, that's a whole
they're
other
just drunks.
bark. Yeah. Well,
It's a whole other thing.
well,
Yes.
it depends because at the Triple Inn, it was really like a community of people.
That's different. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm thinking of a particular sax player.
Okay.
Yes. We used to call him Captain Negativo. Because, like, whatever good was happening, that's not where he was looking, you know. Like,
On the gig. you
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
What was he complaining about?
Oh, the monitor wasn't loud enough. He wasn't getting enough breaks, which is kind of funny because...
In a bar? He
No,
needed-
no, I'm back to weddings.
Oh, back to weddings.
Yeah, Captain Negativo, the Magnificent. Yeah, then we started calling him Magnifico Negativo. And that, you know, that's a whole other thing, names that we give each other. So there was a group of musicians that had a hobby of giving everyone a club date name. And audience, back in the day, everyone that started a club date agency, it had to be two first names. So the most obvious one was Stephen Scott. That was right. Hal Michaels.
Roger Murray.
Ken James. Right. So we all gave ourselves, and the way we did it was to reverse the first name and the last name. So like Peter Valentine became Val Peters. Right.
And what were you?
Babs Williams. My last name is Basson, by the way, audience. So I'm Willa Basson, so I became Babs Williams. And I think, and what would you be then?
Well, to be honest, I was Ted Phillips. I never got it elevated to that.
And we were
know?
discussing this the other day, though. I think, didn't we say you'd be Addie Marlin, maybe?
Addie Marlin.
Addie Marlin. Yeah.
I could just see the fish
Yeah.
face.
I don't know. Thinking about famous schnorrers.
Snores. Well, my very first gig I remember was a Herb Sherry.
Oh, boy.
And
Well,
it was
he's
like
an ultimate schnorrer.
the ultimate schnorrer. Wear a gown and I'm going to pay you $10 an hour. And that was even like low for then, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
I think when I started in my next club day venture, it started at like $75 to $100 a gig. And
That's
then
right.
And then it's sort of like stalled where it is now. I mean, sometimes it's more, and sometimes people can negotiate,
Right.
depending on, I guess, their perceived value or their
Mm-hmm.
actual value. But
Yeah.
I don't think scale for club dates has really changed in a long time.
They just did, but I think it changed by like $12 or
Oh,
something.
that'll buy you some eggs,
Cup of coffee.
2 eggs maybe.
What were you writing down that you didn't want to forget?
Oh, you know, when you were talking about like the guy was like negativity and
yes.
he didn't get a break. I don't know if we talked in the other episodes about how long we played in a wedding without taking a break because we had something called continuous music.
Yeah, no, we didn't discuss that.
And you
Yeah.
know, when you were, depending on if you were in a set band, you know, you do 45 minutes, you get 15-minute break. But you know, in our day, we were like the club date soldiers, and we would play at least 55 minutes and sometimes longer. Sometimes band leaders would make you go till the first dinner course came out.
And they still do. They still do.
They still do. Like they don't want, you know, and maybe they'll spell 1 or 2 people, but generally no. You got to just stay up there, even
Okay.
if you're doing bossa novas.
I want to explain to the audience about continuous
Yes.
versus non-continuous.
Yes.
So the union, the Local 802, the musicians union, has rules if you're doing a union gig about how much time you get off the bandstand per hour. And they had different pay scales for if you were going to do non-continuous, in which it was 45 on, 15 off for every hour, or continuous, which was 55 minutes on, 5 minutes off, right? That's the union rule.
5 minutes, right.
5 minutes for every hour. And usually a wedding is 4 hours, and then if you're like Marla and I, there's another 2 hours of prep stuff like the ceremony and the cocktail hour. But there are a lot of gigs that are not union gigs that are weddings, you know, and always have been. That's always been the case.
But that became like the standard, you know, like, oh,
Right.
you're going to, just an excuse for somebody to work you to death. Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, no, once it was going,
The poor drummer.
we'd have 2-hour gigs, 2-hour sets.
Right.
Easy. I
Easily.
mean, screaming horror sets, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Screaming rock and roll and disco sets.
Yeah, just-
The poor drummer.
I remember I was, and in those
I have
days,
3
you know,
friends that were drummers that are already dead. I'm not kidding.
Why am I laughing? Sorry. I remember because, you know, yeah, like we said last time, in the heyday in the 80s, we were just working 5 gigs every weekend. Friday evening, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday.
Right.
And they could be all over. So I remember we were doing a gig at a temple in Albany for Psy. And
And you didn't start till 9:30?
right, because you can't start until the sun goes down on Saturday night, right? And I
People
had to
eat dinner at 1 in the
They
morning.
do. And I was leading a gig on Long Island the next day at noon
Oh, God.
for the guy who owned the catering hall.
You didn't have time to sleep. And
I
it was
slept
in
for an
Albany.
hour. I
Oh,
slept
my
for an
God.
hour. But anyway,
Gig
so
ho, definitioning.
that's right. So it's 3:00 in the morning, where it's 10 minutes to 3. And I think finally, because I've been playing for 6 hours already, and he leans over and he goes, "We're going to do another hour." And I threw myself over my keyboard and just, you know, like, no, oh God, no, you know, and
That's the worst. When you want to go home and they say, "We love you, play more."
oh my God, I got home at like 6 in the morning and I think I slept for an hour and then had to get up and do the other gig. And I remember my voice was like hamburger. I felt like my throat was like hamburger. I was singing everything like low,
Right.
It's brutal. Oh, boy.
Yeah, that's amazing that the Jewish weddings start at 9:30 at night when the sun went down. I just
Yeah.
want to reiterate that.
Yeah.
And people eating dinner and then
So late.
so late,
And then they would serve breakfast, too, sometimes.
Yeah, you just like move in there. You eat your breakfast. And
Did
your
you ever
dinner.
go to the wrong Temple Bethel or the wrong Temple Emmanuel?
I went to the wrong sands, and luckily it was only 20 minutes from Atlantic Beach to Long Beach, and it was in the contract wrong.
Oh.
So nobody caught it,
Oh,
and then so
There's nothing like pulling up to the temple and the parking lot is deserted, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
realize you're in trouble. And back then, again, there was nobody to call. Unless we've both done this. You drive around in a panic trying to find a phone booth and hoping,
right.
And that was another thing. I think that they always used to have somebody in the office on the weekends waiting for the panic calls because
Did they actually?
sometimes, if
You
you were
hoped.
lucky.
Right, you would hope because
Yeah.
maybe there wasn't anyone there. I mean,
I know, but we've all done that.
there's two like village clubs, and there's one in Lake Success and there's one in Sands Point. And
Oh,
I think
yeah.
somebody got screwed up. They showed up at one when I was working there. I said, "You're at the wrong village club."
And have you ever had the thing where you set up for the cocktail hour and you're halfway through it before you realize you're playing the wrong cocktail hour? That happened to me fairly recently.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the band leader said, set up here. And I set up there and I start to play. And then he comes running in about 20 minutes in. You're in the wrong room. You're in the wrong room.
Yeah, that's crazy. Getting double booked, or somebody else shows up on your gig.
That's happened. Or you show up and someone else is already playing.
It's like, wait a minute.
That's happened too. Yeah. It's great, folks.
and then you have to spar. Well, who's going to stay and who's going to go?
That's right. Did it ever come to blows? I remember it getting a little testy one time. This is reminding me of something else. I was playing with a different band that I played with, a kind of an excitable bass player, and we were playing at the Rainbow Room, and they had a big white piano there. Do you remember? Like on
Yes.
the stage?
Yes.
So these guys, they throw all their... This is another thing, audience. When you get to the gig, your gear is all in cases.
And you have to hide your
You
cases.
have to hide your cases, and you have a hand truck. So, like, after you set up, you have to locate somebody who could tell you where to put the cases, which hopefully is at least on the same floor.
And
right?
sometimes not.
No, sometimes you have to take the elevator to the basement and leave it down there.
That's bad. But what about a couple of times they say you have to put it back in your car?
Yes, which you can't do at the
At
Rainbow
windows,
Room.
right?
Yeah.
Throw it out the
Or
window.
my favorite, leave it outside.
Oh, out in the elements, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's raining.
Yeah, or it might rain, or there's bugs, or anyway. So all these guys put all their cases under the piano, and the maitre d', who, as I have repeated before, very snooty, and he's like, "Oh, you can't put your cases there." And we're going, "Well, where do you want us to put them?" And they go, "Well, if you go 2 flights up and down the hall," and the excitable person in my band
Said.
he backed the guy up against a wall and he grabbed him by the collar and he said, "You're not telling us what to do," but like in a really threatening way.
And you got away with leaving
Oh,
it there?
yeah. The guy was like, "Okay."
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, we were all like, oh,
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of admired his chutzpah.
I devised a very unique way of dealing with that problem. Sometimes I would bring this very thin, black, long sheet. It was like almost like it could like really fold up small.
Like a tablecloth kind of thing.
Something, yeah, really thin, and
Just
you
put it over.
Yeah, and it just looks like it fades into your amp, because it's just the visual. As long as you could hide it behind something, it doesn't
Right.
look bad, But everyone's, rightfully so. They want their restaurant or
Right.
hall not to look.
But
like
now that I'm thinking about
junk.
it, that is another club date skill, right?
right, figuring out how to hide
Where to put your cases.
where to put your cases. Yep, or hide it.
Well,
Camouflage
because
it.
because we all we all want to keep our cases as close as possible so that when the gig is over, we can pack up and get the hell out of there as fast as possible.
Right, or you have an extra wire in there should you need it, or you have your sandwich in there, that you
I have
brought
that
from
case.
home.
I never put that case anywhere else. The case with the sandwich and the fork is always with me. Always with me. Did I mention, audience? Always carry a fork in your gig bag.
If you spend half your 5-minute break looking for silverware, you won't get to eat
That's
your food.
right. That's right. You're screwed.
Excuse me, we have some forks, please?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, they're at your tables. We don't have a table.
Where in the band? Oh. When I get around to it.
Yeah, if you're lucky. I have a gig right now that part of my pay is getting fed anything off the menu except for the Dover Sole, which I didn't realize was $72.
Holy crap.
But it's really nice to be in that situation after struggling to get food or
The club
of
date
any
sandwich,
kind.
as we have referred to.
The club date sandwich, yes.
Yeah. There was a guy that worked for Psy, a drummer, and he had perfected the art of the quick getaway because their last song was always "The Party's Over." And audience, for those of you who, it's a song from
Oh, yeah, what
The
is that
Bells Are
from?
Ringing.
Oh.
The party's over. It's time to call it a day. Right, so it's a perfect sign off there in the '60s when like Steve and Edie, yeah. So I would start doing "The Party's Over," and this drummer would start breaking down his drums, and he had it all set up so that take off your makeup. Da, 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 the party's over, my friend. When it came to that, all he had left was the hi-hat. Everything else was already put away in the cases in the trap, and he would hit the hi-hat, put it in the drum case, and he was gone. So there's an art to breaking down while you're still playing.
Yeah, I do that when I DJ and at a pool club that I work at, and it's like most people have gone at that point anyway, and I
Right.
start just disassembling this, that, and I have like one speaker, and I plug the computer right in for the last song, and so
Right.
then the downbeat, it's 5 more minutes, and I'm out of there. That gig is a particular gig on July 4th. After the fireworks go off, and I played like every American patriotic song, and then everybody leaves at once.
Right.
So you want to like be able to get out as soon as you can. But
yeah.
you can't. I'm
And
stuck.
then, there's the other thing, which was super true back then. It's not as true now, but often you had, usually you had 2 gigs, right? And one could be in Long Island and the other one could be in Jersey. And the downbeat between one and the other could be an hour and a half. So in that hour and a half, you had to pack up, get in the car, get to the next gig, get your stuff out of the car, and set up.
Yeah, that's the stress.
Super stressful.
And then once you're there, okay, the gig is easy.
Yeah, but I mean,
once
how
I'm
many
here.
gigs did you get? Like you got there at like 5 minutes before the downbeat?
Just 3 weeks ago, I got called on the way to a gig in Manhattan that ended at 9:30 to be in Long Island at 11
Right.
for an after party sing along.
But that's different. That's different.
I had an hour and a half.
No, I know, but that was last minute, so they can't ask you to, they
Well-
can't get mad at you if you're late.
Well, they
right?
were going to get mad at the agent
Oh.
because like he was supposed to have told me.
Better him than you.
Right on, sister.
I remember so many mad dashes,
Well, yeah, but then you're responsible because you took the gig. Says, well, I
Right.
think I can make it. It's always
Yeah.
weighing it out, like
Oh, God, I remember going 90 miles an hour down the Garden State Parkway in the rain.
Oh, forget it.
Ah.
So we have one more Letra story.
Oh, goody.
And I'm sure there's many more, but here's one that comes to mind, and it's sort of outside the field of what we're talking about.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah, because
Hey, because why?
because we're
gig
gig hoes. We're going to eventually talk about the other things that we do with the music business. And one time I got approached by owner of a big studio in Manhattan, and I was very excited. And I met with him at the studio, and he talked about doing a remake of a Motown song. I think we were going to do "What Becomes of the Broken Hearted."
Love
Great
that song. Yeah, that's a good song.
And, we were like listening to different singles, and he's like a big time guy, and he has like a famous, I won't say who he was, but he has a famous nephew that's a big rock star.
Ooh,
So you
clues.
you can put it together if you know anything about this stuff. And so anyway, like I go home that day, this is great, like I have like a real shot at doing something here, and I remember getting like woken up at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and it wasn't on his cell phone. It was on my regular home phone, and it was this guy, this owner of the studio, and it's like
2 in the morning.
it was like 2 or 3 in the morning. It was like maybe even 3:30. It was ridiculous, and he was just like going on about how he was holding his dick in his hand, and
Oh my God.
and I think it turned out that he was an alcoholic and he had drank, or he was diabetic.
That was
and he
going to be my
drank.
next question. Was he drunk?
He definitely was something going on, and it's like,
Wow.
oh gee, there goes the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like the guys that introduced me to him that I met through some other music production where I met somebody, like one of them ended up dead 2 weeks later.
Oh my God.
So it's like, you get like a taste sometimes of this underworld, of the music
yeah.
business, and
Oh yeah.
I was better off. He called me holding his dick in his hand.
That's really good.
So
Wow.
that ended that.
Yeah. I'll just throw this one in. There was a guitar player who showed up and played with us for about 5 years, and he invited me to a party in Muttontown.
Oh, like eyes wide shut kind of party.
Yeah, it was an orgy.
Wow.
I got there were all these people walking around like naked with robes hanging open and stuff. I was like, whoa, He goes, well, you said you liked wild parties. Like, get me out of here.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to introduce a segment we're going to do, which is
Credit of the week. Oh, that sounded bad. You could tell we didn't rehearse it.
So we're going to start with the music that's opening our podcast. Marla, would you like to explain?
Yeah, of course, when we were venturing into the recording world, while we were doing club dates, music was like dance pop, and I wrote a song. I thought it was a really strong song, and it sort of had remnants of Madonna a little bit, and it was produced at Record Plant Studios. I had
Very prestigious place.
Oh, yeah, I had a spec deal for like a year there. I was
Wow.
doing all this stuff, and
great.
and I had like somebody from Atlantic Records coming down from my sessions, and then they hooked me up with Fred Czar,
Wow.
who's Debbie Gibson's producer, and
Debbie Gibson.
yeah. So that song was from that era. I had a great arranger named Alan P. Did a great job, and I'm still proud of it to this day, even though it's a dated 80s sound. It's a great song, and
Well, and here, see, it was the perfect thing for us to
incorporate into our 80s, 90s memorabilia
Yeah,
of
yeah.
experiences.
see. It's living a new life.
Thank God.
It's like the family dog that's now went upstate, right? He's living on a farm upstate.
He's happy on the farm.
So, audience, we're going to play a minute of this, and then if you want to hear more, we'll give you a link that you can hear the whole song on.
Sure, I think you ought to.
Yeah, I think they should too. That's a good idea. And so until the next time, may your gigs be plentiful.
And may your GPS signal never falter.
Amen.
Bye.
Won't let her tell you to say love me. Don't hesitate, this feeling just won't wait. Say love me, yeah. You're giving more in other ways before than you've shown me. But I can't read your mind, so lay it on the line. Say you love me. Say love me. Don't keep it all inside. Say love me. And I'll be satisfied. I want you to say you do. Say love me.
To hear the full song, follow the link on the Gig Hose Facebook page. The Gig Hose podcast is produced and recorded by Marla Joe and Willa Basson, also known as The Gig Hose. Thanks to Jeremy Goldberg for opening voices.